Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, citizens, commission commanders, and senators of the Prismatic Imperium. Tonight it's the 9th of February, and you're listening to the Prismatic Congress, a weekly congress based from the Prismatic Imperium player faction in the Elite universe. So, our usual host is ill. I have the honor of replacing him today, and I'm going to do that by not talking a lot and just going straight ahead to the branch missions. Excuse me, I meant the branch news. But today is a special episode because of that. So it's just going to be the Lord Herald and me, your favorite headmaster, leading you through this show. If you're looking into my direction, you can see a lot of pinks. That's because I've put out the details, the route plan, and the recommendations for our next site event. Finally, you've all waited for it. The site spring tour of Colorful Exploration, our first seasonal event. That's going to start at the 28th of February, so the last day of this month. It's not a very long one, but it's one you will definitely remember. We'll start in Kubio, go to the Little Dump Bell Nebula, then to NGC 1501. Next waypoint is Alteros Eye, that also has a mobile station so you can refuel if you want, and a pretty view, of course. The next station is going to be the Heart and Soul Nebula, including the Doom Geysers. That's a pretty reddish area with a lot of interesting sights, not just the geysers. And of course, the final destination, the Bubble Nebula, which has been a target for me all along. That's actually going to be my first visit there, so I'm looking forward to it. Other than that, Sites has a lot of potential projects that I'm not ready to share yet. And because of that, we are directly going to Mind.
Thank you, Techron. I am Kevin from the Lord Herald, branch of Mind. And today I've got quite a bit of news for the branch of Mind since I was absent last week, so we didn't cover it. The first thing I want to get into with Mind news is the diamond market changes I've been making. A lot of that stuff is being done by Missler as well, since he manages the website, and I don't have the skills to do that, so I'm really thankful for that. The first thing I want to get into is the clothing balance pass I've been working on. I've been focused lately on chest items because I noticed that players pretty quickly build up enough money to jump straight down to some of the better armors, and there's no reason to go back to any of the cheaper stuff. They'll always have a purpose for NPCs, since I don't like equipping every opposition with the best items. So the light jacket is actually quite popular with NPCs, enemies. But anyway, I've been giving them a little bit of buff so you can actually utilize a little bit more of what you might want to use. A lot of people really like having as many utility slots opened up as possible, but you don't always need all 6 of them. 6 is quite a lot, and there's only so many to choose from that it gets a little bit redundant because you're unlikely to use all 6 in one specific mission. So the biggest thing that I did is I changed prices a little bit. Everything is gotten a little bit more expensive, and you'll notice that some of the armors are on a tremendous sale. That is not because I reduced their price, that is because I increased their base price. But I left their current value where it is right now so you can take advantage of that opportunity it created, which is a very special sale. And then eventually it will rise to match its new base price. But the next biggest thing you'll notice is that the utilities have been buffed. It used to be the cheapest armor you could possibly own, I want to say was the armored trench coat that had 1 utility slot, and then you had a utility slot or 2 from there, finally getting up to 4 with the super jacket. That has been changed to where there isn't a single item that doesn't have utility slots. So when you start the game with the light jacket, which every new member automatically has when you create a website account, um, you'll have your base jacket with 1 utility slot, which will definitely get you places because they're actually pretty good functionality. I renamed the jacket to light jacket, so it's not just jacket anymore. I also changed its artwork. I'm planning on updating artwork for a lot of old items, just because my skills have improved, and I don't like looking at some of the old stuff. So that's being done. Another big thing that I did was the heavy power suit is no longer a clothing item. So if you're looking through chest items and you can't find you can't find it, that's because I moved it. It is now um, a back item. So you can wear it in addition to whatever armor you want, which is actually a buff. It lost its 4 utility slots that it had, and gained whatever utility slots your clothing can use. However, you can't use utilities while you are in it. And that is another thing that has changed. Because you're able to wear your base armor while inside the power suit, you can actually jump out of the power suit during a mission and not be wearing just your default clothing, which I assume is a flight suit or something. So you can still be armored up when you jump out of the heavy power suit. Something that hasn't changed is when you are using the heavy power suit, since it is so powerful, it comes with 2 chain guns or mini guns, and it has the Mongoose rocket pods on it, which makes it a very powerful unit. You cannot use any of your weapons or utilities or consumable items, including grenades, um, or any of your defenses like the burst shields, while you're inside the armor. It overrides all of those. And it makes perfect sense because you are inside of a flight machine. It is essentially a vehicle that you are piloting. And I did change the description to make special note of that. Nobody has abused it. I'm glad. I really think the power suit has really only been used by Techeron and
Yeah.
Otto von Wolfsburg. And both of them have used it appropriately, where they recognize that the suit does not have full mobility, meaning it's not a mech, it's not a power armor that lets you use your arms and stuff. It's got arms that hang down, kind of like the mongoose. They're just hanging there, and it doesn't have hands. It has miniguns that are hanging off of the arms. And I think that's important that I spell that out, just in case people start using it and they try to do things like karate with it. You cannot fight, you cannot kick, you cannot punch people with it. It is essentially just a super powerful piece of armor that you're inside of, and it has its own weaponry, which is more powerful than usually than you can otherwise use. With too many guns, that's generally impossible. So that was the biggest change I did. The only drawback to doing this move is if you currently had the power armor equipped, it moves to your back item. If you had another back item already equipped, it will now be invisible. Um, and it may also cause some screwy things with your utilities. You'll notice you might have utilities equipped, but they'll also be locked at the same time. The way to fix this is to remove these items. So remove the power suit from your inventory, and you'll see your back item reappear. Um, and you can fix utilities as well. I did a check with this myself before I did this change, so there is a fix around it. I don't think anybody has it equipped, but I don't have any means of checking without visiting everybody's profile manually, which I don't have time to do. So if you are a special case and you had this equipped, this is how you fix it. So pass that on if somebody complains about it and they did not hear this podcast. Moving on, I did some neural augmentation program updates. Uh, let me navigate to that real quick. So you'll now see I have implemented the rest of the missing augments that I had been wanting to add. The case with that is there are two things you can buff with every manufacturer. And since you are required to have two items from the same company, so you can't mix and match with the programs. There is a little bit of creativity you can do. You just have to pay attention to what two attributes you want to buff. I know popular ones are strength and intelligence, or charisma and luck. You're a little bit restricted on what you can do. The best the best combination remains with Cibio, which is wisdom and dexterity and charisma. I'm sorry, there are three choices for every single brand now. You can only have two of them, but there are three choices. And that is an increase from only two choices as I had before. And I think military grade only had one option. So it is a pretty big buff. So jump in there and check out what your options are. And remember, there are purple items. The programs have been differentiated further from general utility programs as they have a different icon. I did have the gear wheel on all utilities before, but I didn't think that was enough. So now in the titles, you also have this double box thing that will appear for anything that is a program. So that should help a little bit when you're trying to figure out what is what before you go ahead and purchase it. Purchase base price is 5,000 for all standard programs. Utilities can fluctuate really anywhere. And the purple items are more expensive. But just so you know, there is a base price of 5,000. So if you see something other than 5,000, that means it's on sale. Next thing I want to get into, which is actually a very exciting one for me. This one is requiring Mistler's help. He has made it a priority thing to be working on. I am doing an overhaul on the commissions. Again, since we've had them running for a little while and I've kind of figured out things that I like about them and things I don't like about them. You'll notice that I haven't been adding any new ones, so they are running out. That is because I am prioritizing on working on a restructure for them. So those will reappear hopefully within the month when Mistler has added functionality. I'm going to tell you what the changes are or what we're hoping to do. As it was, commissions required diamonds. So you are essentially paying somebody so that they can perform something they wanted to do. And they usually reward you with diamonds back. So you're essentially paying somebody to later repay you, hopefully in more diamonds than what you paid them. And that does work for a variety of commissions, but it is a little limiting because I just don't want every single instance to be you pay diamonds, they pay you diamonds back. So we're doing an overhaul with the reward system where now they can reward a quantity of items and hopefully more than one type of item. So what that would look like is if you do a salvage mission, you can gain scrap metal. But it used to be I could only reward you with 1 unit of scrap metal. Now the hope is that I can offer you more scrap metal, but in addition to that, you can also get industrial components, military components, computer components, and some of the other things you might have noticed I've added. I've set them to visible so you can get a preview of what I'm doing. And those are currently accessible under collectible. This is temporary. Collectible is where I had the plushies. And so you'll see there are now new items that are ranging from cheap to more pricey. These are things you cannot buy, so you have to earn them through commissions. Ideally, I've just created an extra step for you to get your diamonds because you have to now go and sell these things. But there is something else that I am working on behind the scenes that's going to change that. You're currently only seeing scrap, but I am working on other things that represent more than just scrap. I want to be able to do mining commissions, exploration commissions, and military bounty commissions, and my personal favorite, espionage missions. So there are a lot of things that you currently cannot see because they are set to invisible, as I don't have the artwork for them yet. And I will continue to add more of those. And that will just give you a huge variety of things that you can earn as a reward. But beyond that, the last change coming to commissions, hopefully, is an addition of different types of requirements. An example of that is, say you wanted to do an exploration commission, but not only does it cost you a handful of diamonds, it also requires planetary data. And planetary data is something you can only earn from a commission where, likely an exploration commission, where planetary data is a reward. So, basically, what I'm hoping to create is kind of like a crafting system where you've got an inventory of items that you will have to decide if you want to sell it or if you want to hold on to it because commissions may require it. Another example is a corporate espionage mission requiring, say, a corporate data leak. Corporate data leaks are one of the more rare and very expensive things you can earn from another commission that gave you that. And then you're going to have to decide if you want the corporate leak to go back to the company it belongs to or to their opposition. So you might have two available commissions that require the same thing that you only have one of, unless you stored up multiple. I like this because this is going to allow me to create commissions that people can't immediately jump into. And it creates more blocks than just having really steep diamond amounts. If I set it up where the only way to obtain to complete a commission is to have lots of money, I'm essentially locking it to only a handful of players that have that kind of money. Now I'm opening it up to everybody again, assuming you have the required components, which you can earn from very invaluable commissions. This is also going to allow me to create dozens and dozens of commissions that are a little bit more generic and easier for me to maintain. So now you have a lot more choices and you don't have to worry about coming to the commission market and realizing there's nothing available because you were too late. And I can also set them to lower time frames. So now commissions can be more commonly only 2 or 1 day long, instead of the 7 or 14 days that I've been doing. So you can now complete more of them and gives you good reason to keep coming back. And I can also make commissions a lot cheaper. So you're not always trying to get, 50,000 diamonds out of a commission because you played with 30,000 diamonds. Now you might do commissions that are worth only 1,000 diamonds, which will make it a lot easier for newer people to jump into. And its reward might be 500 diamonds and then a whole bunch of materials that you can then use for other commissions that give you better rewards. So I'm really excited about that new functionality, and I hope you are too. I got one more thing for news. This is a very simple thing. I am adding generic NPCs on the website. I no longer require accounts for some of their creation and can just parent them all to me, which I did add a test on there, so you can check it out. I think there's just one test. There might be two tests on there. There's a Prismatic Imperium soldier, just a generic soldier that you can find, and you can see what he's equipped with. I'm going to do that for all of our enemy types as well. And the advantage to that is I can now see them in squads when you're fighting against them. And I will have better idea of what their equipment is and what their options are to help add more variety in what the enemies can do. This will also help me move in from the transition of having hundreds of enemies swarming you, which was something that was fun to do, but it's something I also don't want to overuse, which I'm afraid of doing. Now I can do fewer enemies, but make them more dangerous because they have a variety of options. I'm thinking about what their burst shields are, what their armor is, what their utilities are, and what kind of grenades they can throw at you, in addition to what weapons they're using. That's something I didn't have before, and I just kind of had to wing it as I went, and you could see the flaws. That's like DMing a D&D session and not having any stat tables whatsoever, so you have no idea what your enemies are capable of. You're just throwing things out there that seem logical. That's very limiting, so hopefully we'll get a lot more diversity and realism in our roleplay by having less enemies that are more dangerous. And that ends the segment of Branch of News. I'd like to open up to discussion before we cover any roleplay segments that happened this last 2 weeks.
Prismatic discussion. Prismatic discussion.
Well.
Prismatic discussion.
Yeah, well. There's a lot of things you've covered. That's impressive work, I have to say. And I've just found one of your NPC Syndicate Remnant on the fleet roster, yeah? And he has something
I did.
called a Mysterious Utility Program in a black market 340 wet drive.
Yeah, so that really is a generic component that represents whatever I need it to be, because what you're looking at is the equipment for not just one unit, but potentially everybody. So that means not everybody necessarily needs to have a wet drive or some of those other things, but they can have that. And if they do have that, that's likely what is in that slot. That also opens up to the ability for people to salvage, loot items from the enemies they kill. So there is a good chance if you reach into somebody's face and pull out a component, you're not going to know what it is, and you can take the risk of equipping it to yourself to find out what it is at the risk of some tremendous bad stuff, or you could just sell it. But I do want to emphasize that this has been something that people can do all along and have been forgetting. You can loot your enemies, which is like literally free armor, free utilities, free weapons. I'm going to handle it as like you go to loot somebody and I'm going to give you something. We're not going to say you stripped every single enemy naked and took all their weapons and all their armors, because that would be a really problematic for our economy. But I do want to give you the opportunity to nab stuff here and there.
Definitely inspired by the roleplay simulation missions, right?
Well, yes, yeah. I want you to be able to loot stuff. And the way that I handled that, I mean, I've always allowed looting. That's always been a thing. In the simulation sessions, I made it obvious by literally throwing loot on the floors. That's kind of like having chests that you can go open and be like, ooh, what's this? And that was simply by throwing on some little holographic icons all over the map and saying, here's a reason to go explore over here. If you do, you get a random orange item. It could be a piece of junk. It could be really valuable. I don't know. By the way, if you're still muted at this time, feel free to unmute yourself. You can join in the conversation.
By the way, did you set the reputation levels of this NPC by pure randomness, or?
Did I set what? I'm sorry.
The reputation levels.
Reputation levels for NPCs should hopefully all be 0.
Well, you know that Syndicate Remnant here has a positive attitude towards Alicia Mellor, Monty Erickson, and Caddy
Knight. Okay, yeah. Oh, so faction reputations. Okay, I thought you were talking about actual rep as the currency. Okay, yes. Yeah, that is a general indication of how a unit from that would feel about towards any of those NPCs.
So,
and yes.
It would be interesting to know why they have a little blue bar with Alicia Mellor.
That should be obvious and is certainly no secret. I don't want to run you down the wrong path and make you think that Alicia is actually a syndicate spy. She's not. She's a persistent NPC. The secret there is the enemy really loves using the media against us. And you've already seen that in our last season where the people's media literally became the enemy's headquarters because that is what they took over first. And for good reason. They wanted control over the news because in our lore, media controls the people. And if you control the people's media, you control the citizens. You control the minds of people. That is why the branch of mind is the branch of mind and head of the media.
Yeah.
And I think that is a reflection a little bit of the real world. And I just want to push that to an extreme. We are a very unique faction with a government controlled media, which, if you are from any free country, you know that's not what you want. But we're a little bit of a utopia, dystopia, a good mix of that. We're not pure dystopia, but there is a mix there. I want some bad elements. I want some gray area. I want some things that make you say, I wouldn't like this in real life. Or maybe you're from a place in the world where this is the norm. Um, I really just want to push it to an extreme. It's what makes it fun. It's why I chose to be the Lord Herald from the get go, way back before the Prismatic Imperium existed. It's just fun territory. So, yeah,
And
that's
yeah,
why they
what
have some favor with Alicia.
and why the minus 101 diamonds?
Yeah, they're in debt. That was actually an error on my part, but I decided to keep it that way because I thought it was funny to assume that all of the syndicate remnants that we have now are being forced into crime because they're starving. They don't have any money.
Oh,
So,
by Arcana.
I mean, I think that's a realistic thing. We've defeated the syndicate. That was our enemy from last season. We won. They were destroyed. But there are still syndicate remnants, and they are now hiding underground. They don't have a home to return to. If you followed last season, Patrick Rivers' place was all of his assets were completely taken over by Senator Ravenheart.
Yeah.
They've got no home. They're stranded here. And they are avoiding execution or imprisonment. And so they're doing what you'd expect. They're in enemy territory. They're hiding underground. They're causing trouble. Some of them have completely abandoned their mission, but they're still the enemy. They're still doing crimes. They're
Yep.
joining crime syndicates because they gotta eat.
How did they get their hands on branch specific items and the recruit uniforms?
All three of the branches of the Prismatic Imperium were infiltrated before the events of the Prismatic Imperium.
Oh, come on, these precious uniforms, they cost a lot at production.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's why there's 34,000 of them currently in supply
Huh?
on our market.
Oops.
um, no, the reality is I want the enemies to have access to the vigor items. And we did have infiltration. Once they're completely weeded out of vigor, which is pretty soon, they're going to lose access to those items. So
Hopefully.
we'll no longer see them using vigor vehicles and vigor utilities because they just won't have access to that anymore.
So, does anyone else have any questions for Kevin?
No? All right. So I guess unless you got something, Tekron, you want to jump into some of the roleplay stuff that has happened?
Well, you know that my character has decided to become a soldier.
Yeah, that was exciting to see. We called that Tekron meets with Cecilia at the Citadel. You joined the Prismatic military as a soldier under the command of Cecilia Harris. How do you feel about that?
Well, it definitely has a lot of story potential, I guess,
You are
because
both a leader and a grunt.
it yeah, that might increase my chances of dying sooner. But in kind of a way, that has always been the roleplay arc my character was going for. I mean, if you read my bio, you know that I'm a supporter of the Empire, a definite supporter. Joining the military was never a way I wouldn't have considered at all. Because I'm
It's
a
just kind of fun to see you
traditionalist.
do that. It's fun to see you do that under the command
Yeah,
of
I
an
mean,
NPC. So you
I'm
don't get to
a
jump into being a leader or a general. You're at the bottom.
yeah, I mean, I'm totally fine with that. Back in
Yeah.
Arcana when I roleplayed as the Vectus, I always did military stuff first and science as a hobby, and now it's the complete opposite. I'm a
Yeah.
government official in a science department, and when I'm not at work, I shoot syndicates as a soldier.
You're gonna be pretty busy.
Probably. They're going to feel my wrath if work was bad.
I mean, this kind of stuff would be impossible to do in the Federation, but we are the Empire. We literally get to make up any rule we want. So, can a public official, the leader of all of the schools and all of the science in all of Cubio, can that leader also just go to boot camp and become a soldier
Well, the best
at
thing is
entry level?
when I'm in full armor, they can't really see that's me.
No, but they'll see it's you. I mean, they'll know.
I
It's really
mean,
funny.
you come
But
by, you want a coffee, you order me to get one, and suddenly I
mhm,
return, and here you have a coffee. Hey,
mhm.
wait, aren't you the Lord Headmaster?
Yeah, it's called Undercover Boss.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. I think it's great because we can do those kind of things. It's
I'm
entirely
looking
possible
forward
here
to
in the
those
Empire.
reactions of each and everyone who roleplays with me after realizing, oh, that's the Lord Headmaster.
So is Tekron actually being humble, or is he trying to be a celebrity in disguise?
Oh god,
I'm curious to know which
it's the
it is.
next TPM show. Stop smuggling a reporter beneath the military grounds of the Prismatic Imperium,
Yeah.
giving them a
Now,
weapon.
it's great you did not request a different commanding officer. I'm curious. Do you have a lot of respect for Cecilia?
Well, she shot me down.
I mean, she's
I was-
pure at heart and imperial. Go ahead, T.
I was actually going to ask you that, Takaron. Why Cecilia and not anyone else?
Well, I've reacted like in real life. I take the first offer and I consider the other ones after living in with the first opportunity. So I'll try to get stable first. I'll try to learn how everything works. And after that, I might change. I might go to another one. But hey, she was the first one to introduce herself and she offered me a good position. So why saying no?
Yeah, I'm glad you did that. I'm excited about it. You did have the opportunity to switch to any leader of your choice, and some of them probably would have excelled your career sooner because they're like, "Wow, you're the headmaster, and that's going to make me look good if I put you in an officer
Oof.
position."
Well, she said I
But
can change
yeah,
whenever I want, so
yeah, she did. But be careful of any pitfalls she created. I specifically made a bullet note that uh, you stayed with her, that you didn't switch,
yeah.
and that's because it's important. You didn't request, as I worded it, you did not request a different commanding officer.
Well, I'm a very good pilot. My character is a good pilot, so there might be a real chance that I'm switching to the Navy.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I'm just glad you didn't do it in that session because it would have been offensive to her.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I didn't.
It was weird that you did take her seat.
Well,
I thought that was hilarious, and I thought I was seeing the start of you trying to put yourself in charge of her.
well,
You
it
ended up
wasn't.
not doing that, but that was hilarious.
It was a necessary act. I mean, it was like with doing that, she showed me that she regretted shooting me down.
Yeah.
And
T,
with me
anyone else have a comment on that?
with
Tekron
me
making.
with me taking a seat in her chair, it was my kind of
It did seem like you were trying to plant your own authority.
exactly because she
Oh.
shot me up, and Me taking seat in her chair was like something, a sign of I forgive you.
Well, I think you deserved to be shot down,
Hey,
and I think that she should make use of her loyalist attribute, where soldiers will not refuse orders. And I think she should make good use of that when ordering you around. And for taking her chair, I believe that she should make you stand with every single thing that you do. And you're never allowed to sit.
you, sir, have no idea how it feels like to be a government official and then being shot down by someone who you have never heard before.
So I have said it before. If I make a bullet point of it after the session, that means I think it's important. And that means you probably will see something come of this again. So it's not over. you did make her stand at her own desk, which she ended
Yeah.
up sitting on the corner of her desk because it
Beautiful.
would just
That was beautiful.
but it's just what she would have done. But
Before you know it,
It
she's
is
sitting
important.
on Tekron's chair. And then the next moment, she's sleeping in Tekron's bed and telling him to sleep on the floor.
not Cecilia.
I conquer chairs as you destroy windows.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
And-
okay. I have a quick question for Kevin.
Yeah.
So let's say Techeron is a grunt right now. He
Mhm.
takes orders from Cecilia.
Mhm.
Well, what if Techeron goes onto the diamond market and commissions Cecilia to work under him?
Well, that's
regulation.
not a thing. Oh, well, it probably would not succeed. He could attempt that. Everything is possible. You're more than welcome to try it. It's unlikely that would succeed. That would be a tremendous stretch. But Cecilia is kind of locked in as a commanding officer for the purpose of the battle system that is coming next season. So I'm gonna have to just say, if it looks obvious that for the purpose of functionality, I'm not gonna put that to waste. So it's probably gonna fail. You probably cannot become her commanding officer.
Well, I've now just rented her, so I've rented Tekron, so I guess I can command Tekron, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now I
Although
have
there's no functionality for that presently, I just have them available for people if they want to. I don't know. it's really for testing purposes. What you're currently seeing there is not finalized because the whole system has to change for the way those look, the way they react, where they show up in your inventory, all that good stuff has to change. So I have them all set to 1 diamond, so you can technically afford all of the commanding officers.
Yeah,
But
for the
in the
lols.
future, I might as well say this. In the future, we're doing something that's more like we're changing the command tokens to vouchers, so everybody can actually purchase Cecilia and her, as a commanding officer
Oh.
at the same time. But only the first person that deploys her can use her on the map.
No,
Pass her
I'm just
That was a
around.
joke. So Kevin,
No,
I have 2 questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
My first question would be, I have an Imperial Urban Storm, but I have 2 versions. I have the purple one and I have the one from our military. I don't need 2, do I?
No, you could just sell the other one.
Great.
But if you
Can't
ever
deal
abandon
wield.
in the military or something, they're going to take that other one from you.
Not if I run.
Right. Yeah, that's possible. So I want to go ahead and move on to some of the other events that happened. Since we're already, let's see, Ray's not present, but we'll go ahead and cover, since we're here at the Citadel, we'll go through Ray Tracer's return. I'm kind of excited about Ray Tracer coming back. He played a big part at the beginning of this present season. He was the test subject for the simulation, so he actually knows more about the simulation than anyone else. Eventually, he's going to lose that advantage, But so he's come back at a good time. So, but anyway, as he was respectful towards Cecilia, I like that. I'm glad that people are getting along with Cecilia. We'll get to something about that later with Kurt. Uh, and I like that Ray Tracer has, she's questioning his sanity. That is a theme with this season, is sanity. And I know that the season's been progressing very slow, but for people that are in the simulations, they will certainly notice that there is a sanity theme going on where you're questioning things like, is the simulation actually a simulation or is it real? There's just a lot of mysteries with all that, and the lines between reality and simulation is getting blurred, and that should progressively get worse the further you go with simulations, especially if bad things are happening to you in the simulation, such as you're dying or you're getting torn apart by phantoms, anything like that, among other things that have yet to happen. And that's a great time for me to reiterate that this season, everything that happens in the simulations is pre-scripted. I already know how all of it is going to play out and progress, and that is something I wasn't able to do with any previous season, and it was something I was excited about trying with this season. It's a little limiting for me in some aspects because you guys have really changed a lot of things I did not anticipate. So I think that's why it's nice having a simulation story running parallel to our standard anything can happen season, where we're dealing with two rival military mercenary parties, and seeing what you guys can do with that, because it's a lot more freeing. So yeah, I had a bunch of questions lined up for Cecilia to ask Ray, but he kind of with what he started off with, where she's starting to doubt his sanity, it made all of those questions entirely irrelevant. So I'm like, oh well, I'm just gonna throw all that out. So that was fun. I'm apparently Ray Tracer is the one who vetted Jillian Murphy. I did not know that, so that was exciting to learn, because I actually created Jillian Murphy recently, so she's not like a pre-existing NPC. So that was great. There, ray tracer taking control of something that was
Ray
in his
tracing.
realm. Yeah, ray tracing. Yeah, sorry. Ray tracing really is a concept I'm very familiar with. So it's weird having a member in our group named Ray Tracer. So it's just a weird technical thing. Anyway, um, I was glad to see Ray Tracer taking control of something that was reasonable for him to do, and that is a good example of things you all can do. Um, Another great thing that I did with Ray Tracer in the past is he was rescued by somebody when he flew too close to the sun. A story similar to the Icarus, and he lost his eyesight, so he has mechanical eyes. Well, anyone who's been following our story closely, you'll know that anytime a commander gets horribly injured, they're usually saved, and their surgeries paid for by a specific NPC. And we currently have a member here who has firsthand experience of that, but is currently muted. Sin Karma.
Yes, I'm here.
So, do you remember who paid for your surgery to save your life when you blew up in that bomb and lost an arm and a leg and whatever else you decided to lose?
My sanity as well.
Do you remember that NPC?
Yeah, I remember that embassy. Chungus. I forgot his real name. I'm sorry.
Anthony Burge.
Anthony. Yes.
So
No, I'm
Anthony
wondering what
Burge
the
is
hell happened
also.
to him.
Oh, he's still around. He's still posting every day
Yeah.
through the People's Media on his own Burge broadcast. So he's doing what he does. Not necessarily the kind of NPC that runs around with a gun and does heroic things. That's not him.
Yeah, he
But
pays other
yeah,
people to do that for him.
he is the one who personally saved Ray Tracer, which is obviously a stretch considering how big space is. But I like doing that kind of stuff. You know, people can take ownership of those kind of tie-ins, just to bring things a little, tie it a little closer. I want to get into the Capital City RP though, because a lot of things happened in sequence there that are all connected. We'll start off with housing Gabby again.
Ah,
Tekron gave sanctuary to Gabby Allison. That is a theme people wanted to see come back because they thought it'd be hilarious if she took advantage of their relationship really
wait a
to
moment. People wanted to see that coming back. Am I in a reality soap or what?
well, now this isn't this is role play here. This has nothing to do with reality, but people did want to see Gabby taking advantage of Tekron by taking all of his belongings. Really, I mean, he's essentially robbing him,
Yeah.
and it's great. I mean, you did purchase her address. You did give her everything she requested. You actually lost those diamonds from the dress purchase, and
I
you
know.
also lose the items that you give her from your inventory.
Yeah, I've
So you're
purchased
not.
them again.
Yeah, you just have to purchase them again. But it actually has an impact, and it's definitely at a loss for you. But you are building reputation with her. Hopefully, that is an advantage in the future. Um, I'm glad to see you took the bait and learned who her date was. It was Knight Jillian Murphy, the syndicate that Ray Tracer vetted. So that I mean that was entirely optional, of course. Obviously, I make it obvious that I want you to do something, but you do have the choice of ignoring it. Jillian Murphy was also the one sending messages to the estate, the Harris estate, in case anybody missed out on that.
I did notice that.
She was leading that. She was leading that from afar, but I never mentioned her name. But
I think you
just a
did,
loose connection there.
just
Did
from
I?
my encryption cracker. I
I
think
don't
I
think
did
her
get
name
her name
was
from it.
Liz. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. She wasn't present at the battle though. But yeah, I'm glad Tekron was able to learn that. And the force projector, really we'll just jump ahead to the vigorous date, as I called it. I'm pretty sure was it a killer date? No, it was a vigorous date. I'm curious how you guys all felt about that. That was the battle between Gabby and Jelaine that ended extremely violently.
That was quite interesting.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, you love all kind of brutal stuff.
It was very violent, but I think it served a really important note with Gabby's arc. She's being choked to death in the end. And Jelaine decides she doesn't intend to actually kill her, just pass her out so she can then torture her, which is exactly what Gabriella always did to her victims. And I know that some people have lost sight that this is what she does because she had a redemption from Kurt. Kurt saved her. That wasn't a tremendous stretch that it happened, but it did happen. And now I want to play with the idea that, people don't just change overnight just because of one instance. And I gave a really good opportunity for her to be in the position of her victims where she's getting choked to death and she knows she's going to get tortured to death and it's going to be horrible and brutal. And that is a moment where she realizes, wow, I really am a horrible person. And now I know what it feels like to be on the receiving end. And what did I do? I decided to throw that out and say, nope, Gabby has not changed. In fact, it has put her back in the thrill of the situation. She loves that danger. She loves that intimate feeling of, somebody's going to die. It's either me or it's them. and she flips around or she stabs out an eye, flips them around, and uses the force projector to literally smush Jelaine with the force strong enough to break people's space canopies or blow down weak walls in our roleplay, which you guys remember you can do that. Don't forget the functionality of the force projector. It is not primarily a weapon to be used against people because you got to plant it against them, and it's just a hard tool to use. It's not ideal. But I think it was disgusting, but an excellent opportunity for the return of Gabriella Allison.
Did she give it back to me?
No, she didn't. You could reclaim it if you want to, because she did bring it back with her
Yeah, I want
to
it
the
back.
apartment. So you can have it back. It is covered in blood and guts, but it's yours if you want it.
Yeah, I
Um,
just cleaned that off.
just remember that there are consequences to everything you do in roleplay. So if you do want it, you can have it, and I will give it to you. You definitely. I just really think it's funny that you are so open to Gabby being in your apartment and that she's your ally.
Yeah, you know,
Surely nothing bad will come from that.
I'm surprised too. Don't know why I did that.
Yeah, I'm very curious what your thought process is, because you didn't report her to the authorities, and I guess you think that you're immune, that this could eventually catch up with you at any point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad you haven't reported her, because that would end her arc unless she did something extreme. But yeah, it's surprising for your character to be giving refuge to her. You must see something redeeming in her, or you think she's actually doing something good, killing syndicates. I'm curious where you stand on that. You don't have to express it. You could just continue to show it in our roleplay and see how that evolves.
Well,
I
you
think he
know,
was seduced.
That's a possibility too. That Tekron is actually indeed corruptible, and
no,
that
I'm
his
not.
one weakness
I'm the
is.
purest in pure days.
I mean, I think that's a theme that I've been trying to drive recently. Is all Imperials are corruptible. According to, it's what Elodorus Atessius said. Anytime you have two Imperials in the same room, they are both going to have an agenda.
That's the Federation model.
No, that is the Imperial model.
No,
Ah,
the Federation is
don't make
bureaucracy.
me
It's
change
just different.
The
sides.
Federation is bureaucracy. Yes, corruption can exist in that. But in the Empire, it is driven primarily by the motive of self-interest. That's how all the politics is in the Empire. And, don't forget that. We don't want to turn the Empire into the Federation with an Empire coat of paint. The Empire is driven by everybody having a motivation and an agenda that is self-serving.
Like the
And
Empire from Star Wars.
like what? Yes, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. Our empire is really not overly comparable to the Star Wars empire. There are certainly some major differences between
Yeah,
these two
but
types of empires.
in the Galactic Empire, people are also constantly on getting for their own
I think the
goals.
Star Wars empire is actually very similar, but we don't see it in the movies. It's only kind of mentioned in offhand mentions in the Star
Legends.
Wars: A New Hope, where they're like, the empire has decided to dismiss all of the leaders, blah blah blah, whatever the politics was. But you don't see it in the movie. But this is something that drives our roleplay. We are an Imperial roleplay faction, and we have a lot of freedom being Imperial, and I want to take advantage of that. But let's jump to the last session that happened: the assassination of Knight Ghislaine Murphy, which was about Kurt Austin attempting to speak out to Cecilia Harris about acquiring a wrist guard from the Imperial uniform, which I took advantage of to tie into Tekkaron's story with Gabby Allison. So if you guys recall, Elodorus Odysseus was there arguing with Cecilia Harris. I want both of them to be right, but to have their own approaches. Kurt decided to disagree with Elodorus in this specific instance. So Kurt apparently isn't pushing Tekron as a suspect, but Elodorus is.
Ah, my
Elodorus
friend,
believes
why?
that Tekron is a suspect. Yes, because Elodorus isn't about friends first. Yeah, you can be friendly with him, but he's not going to throw out possibilities. I think he's fair. I think Elodorus is our least corruptible NPC. He tries to be fair, and he will betray his own friends if he believes they are actually a villain. And that
Cool.
doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go purge Tekron with fire. He's not going to go all Frollo, Judge Frollo on him. But Tekron is a suspect, and I believe that is entirely valid, considering Tekron's DNA is present at the scene. Because it is his force projector that was used. And Gabby has been hanging out in his apartment. So, and we're using some sci-fi, CSI, whatever. They've got the ability to detect the smallest traces of DNA, I would believe. But Kurt did agree that Gabby Ellison is a likely suspect. That is an obvious conclusion he should come to, because it is obviously something Gabby would do. And there is a connection between Gabby and Tekron that Kurt is aware of. Not presently, but he is aware that there is a connection there. And I really enjoyed the opportunity for Kurt to get onto Cecilia's bad side. I did not expect that to happen, but I am so glad it did. Anybody have any thoughts to share on that?
Well, with my character working quite well with Cecilia, it might cause some conflict between my character and Kurt. Maybe not, but we'll have to see.
I think Cecilia really is a zealot, and I mean she kind of wears that right there on her sleeve. She's easy to be friends with as long as you are respectful and you have imperial etiquette, and you're an imperialist. You're going to be great friends with her. But if you're not, then you're really going to see her single personality trait really shine through. There's a reason her soldiers do not refuse her orders. It's very likely she'd execute her own soldiers that didn't follow orders. So I don't really go into detail of why they follow their orders, either because they all adore her, or it's because they're terrified of her. I don't. That's up to you to decide. It might be a case by case basis, but her soldiers are loyal for good reason, and so I really liked that opportunity to show that Cecilia has that dimension to her, that she can be offended and it can get very ugly, and and he told her that she should be more logical in her decision making rather than emotional, and yet he I'm forgetting where I was going with that, but Kurt is doing an opposite of what his actions. There's something that was contradicting there. And so I want to say that it should have been good advice, but it's technically bad advice in this specific instance. So, anyway, she's going to be very logical with her decision making towards whether or not she should marry Commander TTMJ. And so we'll see where that goes with that. I think it's going to work in T's advantage in this specific case, but it's certainly the opposite of the way I believe Kurt handles his situations. I think that is a theme with Kurt. Kurt has some emotional things that goes on with his character. He's suffered a tremendous loss. He tries to be logical in his decision making, but I think emotions definitely has a major impact on all of his decision making. And so it's just really interesting to see Kurt preaching what he believes to be right, even if he fails to deliver on that for himself. So that really does cover all of the role play that has happened the last 2 weeks, I believe, unless I'm missing anything. And so just really curious on what your guys' thoughts are on that. And of course, if you have any questions on anything else, we can open to that. It has been a full hour, so we can end at any time. Any final thoughts?
I would say that in the future, if there is a big battle against whoever is the bad guy at that time with like tanks and all that, I would like to hire, quote unquote, whoever Techeron's commanding officer is, and then order them to send only Techeron to fight the
No.
enemies.
I don't think that's very
Yeah.
realistic.
On that specific day, I'll spend my time in the observatory.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
And then hopefully Cecilia is still your commanding officer, so you cannot refuse her order.
Probably not.
Right. Yeah, she'll come to the observatory
you
to
know what?
just flake,
I'll
just
just
cut you down.
I'll just use my biggest weapon, the Uno reverse card.
Oh gosh. Yeah. No, T, I really don't think you have that much fine control over your commanding officers when you send them out. You're really giving them control. So yeah, but that is hilarious. You are free to attempt to do that.
Good luck.
I'm still waiting for a chance to use my plasma cannon.
Well, the
Yeah.
TPM is open every day, so just go there and put it out and shoot some.
Yeah, just go to the People's Media and blow something up. That's usually what we did in the past, isn't it?
Please aim at the Lord Herald's windows.
No, yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, I've got a
you
knack
could
for shooting out officers, so I think I'll pay him a visit.
You got a knack for blowing up windows, that's for sure.
Don't worry, I'll just escape on the back of a fighter like last time.
Unfortunately, the Lord Herald doesn't have any direct windows to the
I'll
outside.
make a
His
window.
windows lead to a bunker wall.
I will make a window.
Yeah, it just leads to his window looks at concrete
I will...
and he projects the outside. Yeah, that wasn't intentional. That was a simply a design flaw that I did, having an elevator office that can drop all the way down when the top of the TPM tower is actually wider than the base. So, whoops. So that is actually the reason why the Lord Herald's office windows don't actually look outside. Anyway, I think we should go ahead and end the recording.
Oh well, okay, yeah. Before this is all getting too memey.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for showing up today, and I hope it's been a great session.
And we hopefully see you next week again. So have a good evening, and please stop making plans of sending me into battles alone. Thanks.